Hey everyone, I'm holding on here. Today we're doing our bi-monthly or whatever the word is for 2 times a month, a political stream and, political video here on the Holding On Here channel. And we've been talking a lot, right? Literally, the last 1, 2, 3, 4 videos, right, have been about the Trump administration, Elon Musk, the Republican Party, right? They're the ones that, won the election, right? And took over power, and everything's been going crazy. And all these things that we've been talking about, like Doge dismantling, the federal government, Trump, siding with Russia and kind of turning it back to our allies. Obviously, the ties between Trump and Project 2025, everything Trump. I mean, we've been talking about that a lot, right? And I think that's important. That's what I've been wanting to talk about, since that's what has been going on, is a lot of unprecedented times and things, in America here. But today I actually wanted to talk about the Democratic Party, right? Because I know a lot of the people that watch this channel and a lot of the people that I'm trying to either convince or educate or whatever, I don't really know. I mean, this is mostly just a creative outlet for me, right? Even if nobody watches these videos, it's just so I can get all the politics out, right? So I don't have to bring it into all of the time to grind gaming videos. Not that I'm against, bringing it in every now and then, but just having an outlet for it is ultimately the thing. And if I convince some people or educate some people, so be it, right? And just the fact that I'm holding on here with you guys at the same time, right? But a lot of the people I know that, are maybe third-party voters or people that didn't vote, or maybe people that voted for Trump and maybe are starting to regret it, whether it's because they're now, having to deal with the consequences of their actions, fuck around, find out a little bit, or, whatever it is. I think it's sometimes easy to, as an example, our first 4 videos have just been talking about the Trump administration, talking about all the things that I'm against that is happening, currently. And we'll brush on a couple more little things here in a second. But they just see it like as a constant attack. And I feel like it almost makes people be on the defensive, right? We had on our last stream, someone came in the middle of the stream and was just literally defending everything Trump has ever done, right? We were talking about law and order, talking about Back the Blue and how, Trump pardoned all the, the January 6ers. And he was like, oh, well, all the January 6ers were innocent, right? And it's like, they're not, first of all. And it's too like, and I know I had someone left a comment that was like, don't teach people how to be, better debaters when they're on the worst side. But like legitimately, right. I think it's important for people to realize that it's okay to be against, right. Some of like, not everything that I'm talking about, maybe trying to vote Democratic Party, right. We're about to talk about all the issues I have with the Democratic Party and some of the things going on recently right now. And it's fine. And very important to be critiquing those of, the people that you're supporting, right? And not just blindly follow everything they say, right? Because if you guys have seen any videos or anything, some town hall meetings, obviously a lot of the Republicans aren't doing town hall meetings because, their constituents are very angry, right? And there's some Democrats, and we're going to be talking about this, later in the video. But the Democratic Party right now really does need to be fighting tooth and nail to stop what is happening. I do think there's a little bit of unfairness with, people that, like if you're someone that voted for the Democratic Party, you voted against Trump, you voted against, the things that are happening right now, right? It's very valid to be like, come on, Democrats, like, what the fuck? Like, you need to fight harder, right? And I do think it's a little bit hypocritical of people that like didn't vote or they voted third party and they're being very like critiquing like, wow, all this shit's going on, the Democratic Party, why aren't you stopping this? It's like, I mean, one, we're going to talk about how in certain instances they need to be better at stopping it. And we're going to get into it. Trust me, that's what this whole video is about. I'm not saying that they're perfectly innocent, but it's like, well, you didn't vote or you voted third party and Republicans got more votes. So Trump got in office. The Republicans took control of the Senate and the House. And now it's time to find out what that means, right? I don't think the Democratic Party is doing enough. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I do just want to preface this with obviously, I think the false equivalencies, which some people that I've talked to about how the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are both equally evil, right? I think there's no truth to that unless you're someone that is just so religious that you hate gay people and you hate, women's rights and whatever it is, as long as you're not in that camp, right? Definitely a false equivalency, right? It's insane, right? We have obviously some of the things we've talked about before, but I mean, there's been further escalations with Trump disobeying judges' orders, right? There's supposed to be checks and balances in this government shit, right? And one of the checks and balances is supposed to be judges blocking things that aren't, constitutional, and then it goes up and up to the higher and higher courts and the Supreme Courts and the state Supreme Courts and then the final Supreme Court, right? There's supposed to be checks and balances. So you have Trump saying and his administration saying that, they're just not going to follow orders from certain judges, or in certain cases, they are threatening impeachment on judges that don't just blindly follow everything Trump does, right? I mean, that extends to the Doge cuts, right? Freaking the U.S. aid, right? A judge just recently was like, this was everything Elon did was unconstitutional, right? And but it's like, what happened? I mean, everybody got fired, right? Like it got taken over by Marco Rubio. It's already happened, right? And then obviously there has been some insane things, right? Of that we're going to be talking about here. Actually, I have some things that we could actually maybe pull up here in a second. For sure, they're not a comparable. Republican Party doesn't even exist anymore. It's just a MAGA Trump cult. It's why I wish the Democrats were doing more, though, because this isn't normal anymore. Trump is acting like a king, not a president. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Because you would think that because that's the Democratic Party is very wide, right? There's a lot of sides, right? Very progressives to very moderates. There's a huge difference in that party, right? But the Democratic Party has kind of anything that the Republican Party isn't, right? And obviously, for those of you guys that don't know, in the grand scheme of world politics, America's moderates are way further right. So for y'all, it would be this way, are way further right than moderates in other countries. So if you talk about a moderate in another country, or a politician that's more of a moderate, they're really more left leaning in our scale of things, right? It sucks because some of the more rational Republicans, even some of the rational Republicans in office, you have people like Elon Musk and Trump threatening any Republican that doesn't get in line, doesn't support with everything Trump does, right? We saw it with a lot of the confirmation hearings, right? There were a lot of Republicans that were like, hey, RFK Jr., dude, you are against the polio vaccine. And there's certain instances, he's talking about how chicken pox, we just let all the chicken pox, everybody get it. And, or not us, but the chickens or whatever. And just all this stuff. And there were some Republicans like Mitch McConnell who lived through the polio shit, right? And was like, hey, what do you this is not okay. You shouldn't be. But then, it's just all these Republicans can keep coming out and saying that they don't support things. But, ultimately they're, I guess, scared that they're going to be ousted. They're not actually trying to stand up for their constituents. Right. And they're just going to blindly follow, everything Trump does. Right. And so the Democratic Party is very different. There is, the difference between people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, who we're going to be talking about, later in this video, and hopefully in some future videos as well. Versus, moderate Democrats, like Chuck Schumer, stuff like that is very, 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 very different, And beyond right or left, the current administration and Trump are acting against the interests of America, the founding fathers, Constitution, everything Republicans claim they care about. Right. Yeah. If Republicans 5, 6, 7 years ago were not buying Teslas, they were not caring about that. They did not like Russia. But all of a sudden, it all comes a little bit back here. So I just want to go over a couple small little things with Trump, right? Because I feel like we have to, because, whatever. This is going to be a more lighthearted thing here, though this was real. So recently Trump and Putin, right, have been trying to have these talks about this temporary ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, except, as we talked about last episode, we seem to really heavily be siding with Putin and Russia. And so some of these temporary ceasefires right now are okay, well, maybe nobody gets to drone strike energy shit, right? No more doing that. And then immediately the temporary ceasefire broke, this has all been happening really recently. But apparently Trump was supposed to be on a phone call with Putin. Now there is slightly different reports, whether there was a set time, whether Putin made Trump wait an hour, an hour or whatever. But Putin was supposed to at some point during this day talk with Trump. right? And I just want to play this just to show how it feels. Like, it doesn't feel like it's all like Putin is just like laughing his ass off that he has control of the American government, right?
По заявлениям Дмитрия Сергеевича Пескова, у вас разговор должен до 18 часов состояться с Дональдом Трампом. Не знаю, насколько он...
We'll talk about it here in a second. So this is a room full of like oligarchs and stuff.
Сейчас надо посмотреть, что на эту фразу скажет Трамп. Может быть, он любит интервью давать, может уже
Трампа не упоминал.
Не-не-не, он знает, что у нас дискуссия.
So I mean, like, this was more just a lighthearted thing. I'm not trying to like say anything here, but it really does seem like Putin is just like, I don't know, it just feels like we're being like a laughing stock, right? Like it's crazy, right? Like how the tables have turned here, right? And then obviously, I mean, because I don't want to make this whole video about Republicans or Trump, right? We have insane like things like the U.S. deporting 250 alleged gang members to El Salvador, despite a court saying you can't do this, right? You know, because Trump invoked the freaking 1798 law previously used to detain Japanese Americans, right? And if all of these people were proven to be gang members, okay, like once again, that's a conversation. But the problem is this isn't, there's no due process happening here, right? And for those of you guys that don't know, the El Salvador prisons, they're literally like, El Salvador was really bad with gangs and stuff like that, right? Like insanely bad. So I think the most recent president kind of stepped in and fucking, I mean, cracked the fuck down so much so that you know, I mean, some people in El Salvador are you know, being also. I have multiple chats here. I didn't mean to have multiple chats open here. But like insane crackdowns, right? I mean, all the guards, a lot of them wear masks, so you know the gangs can't you know, fight their family. But I mean, absolutely, like the shit going on here. These are like some of the most insane prisons. I mean, they're getting beat. I mean, when they die, they don't even tell the family, right? They're just burying them, and it's kind of insane, right? Where we already have a couple cases of some American families being like, "Yo, like I saw my family member, they got deported." They're not a gang member, right? And it's just the fact that there's no due process. It's kind of insane, right? We have certain instances here where, I mean, just like all these other countries are literally telling their own citizens to maybe not go to the US, right? Because of just our, you know, we're detaining nationals coming into I mean, it's just insane. It's just insane, right? So that was more just to kind of be like, they're not the same, right? They're not the same. Well, America is a laughingstock anyway. I mean, you are idiots. I mean, the average American, I would not disagree with you. I would not disagree with you, to be honest. And we're laughing watching your imperial shithole of a country go to hell. I'm a left winger and I hate the American left lib shits more than MAGA. Man, you got some fighting words here. I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't blame that. Well, I'm shitting on the Democrats here today, so even though I'm going to tell everybody to vote for them after. So my wife has pretty much destroyed her relationship with her dad because she refuses to be a MAGA bootlicker, and he now thinks she's woke. She's not even Democrat. She just hates Trump. I know, that's insane. Like, I have some, because I live here in Texas, right? I live here in Texas, and there's so many people that I know who their parents know how awful Trump is. They know, they like, I have some friends that their dad is like obsessed with history, right? They know everything about history. They know this stuff. They know Trump is bad. They know all of this stuff. But all that means is that they won't vote for Trump. It's like they won't take it upon themselves to actually try to stop the issue, right? Vote for the Democrat candidate, right? To try to stop Trump. They have too much of an ego, right? But now let's finally get into shitting on Democrats here, right? And stuff like that. Because recently, I don't know what that sound was. Recently, there was the GOP, right? The GOP funding bill here. The GOP wanted to you know, get this funding bill. They didn't work with the Democrats at all because, you know, why would they? They have control of, you know, the presidency, you know, all branches of the government here, the Supreme Court too, so they didn't work with the Democrats at all, right? And this included things I'm trying to see here. GOP crafted stopgap spending bill here to obviously avoid a government shutdown, right? This was, we're going to get into who voted against it here, but I'm trying to remember and see what this bill, there were specific numbers because what this spending bill did here, let me see if I have it on one of these other links here. Let me see here. Because what it did, well, so first of all, right, if all of the Democrats in the Senate had put their foot down and said, and welcome Kyle, and said, right, we're not going to play ball, right? You guys are, I mean, dismantling all of our things. If these Democrats all came together and had some balls, which most of them did, then, you know, I mean, maybe that would have caused the government shutdown. Maybe that would have caused, though, the Republicans to actually fucking talk with the Democratic Party, right? Actually come to a compromise. Instead, 10 Democrats helped Republicans pass the GOP-crafted stopgap spending bill. And in particular, you have Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who we're going to be talking about here in a little bit, from New York, Senate Democrat Whip Dick Durbin, from, I think, Illinois, Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada, Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire, I think, John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, Gary Peters from Michigan, Brian Schatz from Hawaii, Kristen Gillibrand from New York, and Jani Shaheen, I don't know how to pronounce any of these, I think that's New Hampshire again, and Angus King from Maine, an independent who caucuses with Democrats, also voted to advance the measure. They joined every Republican except Senator Rand Paul, who voted against the measure. And apparently Peters from Michigan and Shaheen from New Hampshire said that they're going to retire at the end of their terms. So I guess you don't really have to worry about, most of those. But if you live in any of those states, right, I want you to know which Democrat in particular is, voting, with the Republicans and stuff like that. Chuck Schumer, right. Obviously that the Democrats in the House, like AOC and stuff, obviously, and more of the liberal base of the base, was being like, don't just hand them the keys to everything. Don't give them all of the bargaining chips. Right. Chuck Schumer, as the minority leader, his argument was, and I think it's like somewhere here, I think there's some actual quotes here. Let me try to open these here. I'm already getting lost in all my, all of my things here. Let me see. I had 3 things roughly talking about this. Is this actually talking about, okay, here we go. So this is what the stopgap does, right? Or what it is, right? So the bill that did get passed, right? The bill largely keeps government funding at levels set during Joe Biden's presidency, though with changes. It trims non-defense spending by about $13 billion from the previous year and increases defense spending by $6 billion, which are marginal changes when talking about a top line spending of nearly $1.7 trillion. Obviously, it was 54 to 46 party line. 10 members of the Senate Democrat caucus helping the bill advance the passage. Senate Democrats argued for days whether to force a shutdown, livid that Republicans in the House had drafted and passed the spending measure without their input. Democrats said the legislation shortchanges healthcare, housing, and other priorities and gives Trump wide leeway to redirect federal spending, even as his administration and the Department of Government Efficiency rapidly dismantle congressional-approved agencies and programs. Though enough of the Democratic senators decided a government shutdown would be worse. Chuck Schumer said a shutdown would have given the Trump administration the ability to deem whole agencies, programs, and personnel non-essential, furloughing staff with no promise they would ever be rehired. A shutdown will allow DOGE to shift into overdrive. Donald Trump and Elon Musk would be free to destroy vital government services at a much faster rate. So the thing here, though, and I think some of these, right, obviously a lot of the Democrats in the House absolutely bash this. I'm trying to remember here. Let me see what AOC was saying here.
I think there is a deep sense of outrage and betrayal. And this is not just about progressive Democrats. This is across the board, the entire party. I think it is a huge slap in the face.
Yeah, I understand.
And I don't care about them talking about it because we're going to be talking about it here. And obviously we're going to be talking about AOC a little bit more, and stuff like that. Saying it's a deep sense of betrayal and stuff. And I'm trying to remember AOC's in particular thing here. Because overall, the thing is like, yes, maybe Chuck Schumer is right? Like, I'm not a political, freaking I don't know all of the ins and outs of all of this stuff, but like, yeah, maybe it would have allowed Donald Trump and Elon Musk, you know, to destroy certain agencies a lot easier when there is a government shutdown, right? But it's already happening. Like, as we've talked about, as of recording this video today, Donald Trump is expected, after been talking about it for weeks now, expected to pass the executive order dismantling the Department of Education to the furthest extent of the law, or further, because, right, court orders haven't really stopped the Trump administration in a while. But like, if you're already admitting, right, that Trump and Elon are destroying vital government services, and you're saying, oh, well, if we don't put our foot down, right, or if we put our foot down, he's just going to be able to destroy things faster. Well, he already is. Like, make it fucking harder. Like you need to be fighting more for the American people, right? And I know, I mean, obviously Trump's approval ratings are fucking down as far as you can go, but the approval ratings of the Democratic Party, right, is pretty bad as well, because it just doesn't feel like the Democratic Party is fighting for us, right? And welcome. So let me see if there was anything here. Let's see here. Let's see. And obviously, you know, there were a lot of spending cuts, right? If we're talking about, you know, obviously that goes into a line with what Trump and Doge are trying to do. But then, you know, once again, why are we increasing? Why is the fucking military budget the only thing like that is not only not cared about being cut a little bit, but we're just going to keep increasing spending for it, right? Democrats oppose the spending cuts, warning they'll erode critical public services, as has been happening, right? But they're sounding even louder alarms over the absence of specific language designed to ensure that the Trump administration spends the money as Congress intended, language House Republicans rejected. That omission, the Democrats say, will allow Trump ally Elon Musk and his Doge to continue slashing federal agencies and programs unchecked by Congress, right? People have to know what Democrats stand up for, and they've got to see us fighting. You know, I think one of the Democrats probably that voted, voted no, right? But overall, right, because of the 10 Democrats here, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, it passed, right? And because they think that it's better to avoid a government shutdown, right? And I totally acknowledge that a government shutdown would be really, really bad. But, right, like, you can't, the Democratic Party is always the party that like has to keep trying to play by the rules, right? And stuff like that. And it's just, it's ridiculous, right? Like, make the Republicans, right? Make the fucking Republicans actually play nice, right? And obviously, this is where we're going to be now talking more about, you know, the party's crisis, the Democratic Party's crisis, right? Because, you know, there is a huge difference between, you know, the super progressives and more of the moderates. What music do you recommend? A little bit random. I don't know, like rap, hip hop. I listen to a lot of different stuff. So Democrats have been sniping at each other in public since Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer helped pass a Republican spending bill that prevented a government shutdown. But the divisions in the party hardly began there, right? For months, Democrats have been struggling to coalesce behind a political strategy as they confront Trump and the Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. Behind closed party doors at party retreats, think tank meetings, strategy sessions, Democrats have been having tense and searching conversations about ideology, policy, and messaging as they urgently try to address what went wrong in last year's election, right? Democrats grapple with the scale of their challenges, right? Obviously, for me, my quickest answer to that would be you need to actually do more things that the American, like the working class, need. You need to get more things passed that are actually helpful. And I will say part of it, and Biden has even talked about this in interviews, I believe near the end of his term, I think the Democratic Party has probably talked about it a little bit more. The Democratic Party and especially the Biden administration didn't do a good enough job at like advertising what they were doing for people, right? Obviously you had the infrastructure stuff, some of which is, you know, the funding, you know, got appropriated, but now you have Doge coming in and just, doing all this unprecedented stuff, right? But infrastructure, right? Never sexy, right? We've talked about in previous episodes and videos, you know, even though, you know, the administration was complicit in the genocide, right? It was obvious that the Trump administration was going to make things much worse. And and they've been doing that. I don't want to talk about all that again because we've been talking about it a lot. But it's hard to like know what necessarily some of the Democratic Party has been doing when they don't advertise it, right? And it's not the most sexy stuff, right? But also part of that is real, right? We need to run on certain policies, right? You know me with Bernie Sanders here. We need to run on things that actually will meaningfully help the American people, right? Universal healthcare, helping the environment as well, but either way, let's keep reading into this here. So that's just what I would say. I would say, I've talked with so many people who are just like, well, you can't just say the other party's worse and then I need to vote for you, right? You haven't earned my vote. And I mean, that's true, right? The Democrat Party needs to be better at aligning with each other. But I mean, that's hard when you have super progressives and more just moderate Democrats, right? Who will fucking vote for the spending bill, right? For the Republicans, right? But I think they need to prove and fight harder that they are fighting and working for the American people, and so. For us, Democrats were alarmed by exit polls from November's presidential election, which found Trump voters without a college degree and those who made less than $100,000 in annual income. The same data showed Trump also made inroads with communities of color, young voters, traditional areas of strength for Democrats. Democrats are facing stark dissatisfaction among Americans, including among the party's base, right? Only about 3 in 10 U.S. adults had favorable views of the Democratic Party versus 54% who had an unfavorable view in March. 6 in 10 Democrats said they'd prefer to see the party stop working with the Republican agenda, compared with about 4 in 10 who preferred Democrats work with Republicans, right? And that's a big thing as well that we're going to be talking about here. I don't know if we're going to be talking about it here in a second. We are going to be talking about it here in a second, but the biggest thing, right, that we're going to talk about is that's the thing, right? The Democratic Party keeps trying to do this thing where they're going to play by the rules, right? The Republicans are going to come in, fucking not play by the rules, right? The Democratic Party comes in, and it's like, well, we gotta stay, we gotta stay normal. We can't not play by the rules as well. We need to try to appeal to these moderates, right? We saw in the last campaign, right, with Kamala and Tim Walz, right? Tim Walz, I think, very awesome progressive choice there and stuff like that. But they kept trying to do things where they were going to appeal to moderates, right? They were trying to appeal to Republicans that maybe weren't full Trumpers, right? They were doing things like trying to get Liz Cheney and stuff like that to campaign with them and trying to campaign on this. We're going to bring everybody together. The problem with that is the Republicans are not doing that, right? First of all, you have the Republican Party and the Trump campaign literally going in saying to their base, saying to their party, Elon Musk is saying, if you don't agree and don't vote for everything that Trump and I want, I will fund so much money at funding a challenger to you in the primary. So we're going to have only the most loyal people in the Republican Party that are doing the exact things that Trump and Elon Musk want, right? And it seems to work, right? And so you have people that are either so in the MAGA camp and so in the Trump camp that they're going to vote Trump, or you're going to have some of the more reasonable Republicans that know Trump is bad, but they have an ego bigger than their fucking, I don't know, their beer belly. And they won't vote on the opposition. So trying to do this thing where you're trying to appeal to the moderate voter, you're trying to appeal to this, it doesn't work, right? As from that poll, 6 in 10 Democrats say, stop working with the Republican agenda, fight that shit, right? And only 4 out of 10 saying you do want to work. So when you're trying to do all these things, it's not going to work. You need to run on progressive ideas, progressive things that are going to help the fucking American people, right? Tangible things that you can hold on to. Right? And stuff like that. Let's go Trump 2025, F Kamala Harris and the Democrats. Could you tell me, I'm just curious. Could you tell me a couple things that you really like that Trump is doing? I'm just genuinely curious to see what you will say. But yeah, so we need to stop trying to work and be bipartisan, right? Because the other side is not trying to do that with us. Trump is not scared. Okay. Okay. Can you give me policy? Can you give me something tangible that the Trump administration has done that you like? I don't want to hear feelings, right? I know the Republican Party likes to be like, facts don't care about your feelings. I don't want to hear you talk about that. Trump is getting rid of the illegals. Okay, I see. So okay. So you don't like illegal immigrants and stuff like that, and stuff like that. I'm assuming you're also okay with him just dismantling the things that were allowing these people to come here legally, right? And stuff like that, because the one thing I've noticed is people that are against illegals, right? When we had processes in place, when we had legal avenues for people to come in to get green cards, they're fine with all of that, because it feels like sometimes the sentiment is it's just a more like anti-white thing. No, Joe Biden did not do that. No, I'm talking about Trump doing that. I'm talking about Trump doing that. The Biden administration put in. There were some things like for certain refugee things. There were certain pieces of infrastructure that were getting put into that process to help us keep track of some of the migrants coming in. And the second Trump started doing everything that he was doing, he dismantled a lot of these legal processes just entirely, right? And now we're just sending alleged gang criminals to El Salvador without due process, right? And because once again, if they're actual gang members and stuff like that, I don't have a problem with that. But when we're invoking the the fucking 1979 fucking thing that is what we used to discriminate against like Japanese people, and we were putting them in camps and stuff like that, it's a little bit scary, right? We have people. What was it recently? Someone posted it in my Discord here, actually. Let me go actually look at it here. Shout out to our thing. Oh yeah, there was a French scientist, right, that was like trying to come into the U.S. They got kicked out, right, of the U.S. because they searched their phone and their social media and found things that they were talking bad about Trump. And so that is now grounds for getting kicked out, right? People that had actual green cards, right? Had the whole legal process, right? Are trying to, the Trump administration is trying to deport them because of the fact that they are, they were taking part in pro-Palestinian what is it called? Protests, and stuff like that. Right. And so, I could have a conversation about illegal immigration. Now, obviously, here's some facts here that you can look up and you can back up. As much as the right likes to try to paint it that illegal immigrants are coming here, they're taking all of our jobs, they're taking all of our resources, the actual evidence, the actual statistics behind all of that, most of these services, most of these parts of the government, right, to provide certain, services, like Medicare, Medicaid, a lot of this stuff, illegal immigrants are not allowed to access that. But illegal immigrants still pay taxes, on their income, and so the government is actually earning more money from illegal immigrants. If we're purely looking at this from an economic standpoint, and this is facts, this is stats. I think we pulled up some of the stats on a previous video. The government gets more in taxes, right? And they're not even allowed to use any of the services that are here, right? If all you care about is it from a because obviously empathy isn't really a word that resonates with a lot of right-wing voters and stuff like that. It's just more like how can I get more money? How can I get more power? And stuff like that. But even, from an economic thing, right? I have empathy, you should not do political streams. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And I'm sorry that upsets you, because I do know, that feelings get hurt on the right, when facts kind of, come into play. It's always the same, right? You talk with a Trump supporter, you ask him something, you start trying to talk about the actual specifics of it, the actual inner workings, the actual facts, right? And then, the feelings get hurt a little bit, and, that's just what happens. But either way, right? And that's why right? Bert, thank you for bringing me into my next point. That's why working with this, trying to find a middle ground here with people that can't see anything wrong with what is happening here in the administration is just not going to work, right? You need to run on things here that, the American people can feel and are tangible and actually help them, right? I don't hate illegals. It is just that they're invading the U.S. Like you look things up. I'm telling you that, right? You're just spitting out talking points, right? Like if you truly think that all of these first of all, America is supposed to be this melting pot of multiple cultures, right? And if you genuinely think that's an issue, then I don't think that the solution is to dismantle every aspect of our government and dismantle all of these legal processes for us to track. And, normally sometimes when I have this debate with people, there is a genuine problem at the border. There are genuine conversations. There's genuine debate to be had about, how things happen and stuff like that. But for you to just be like, oh yeah, Trump is literally solving the problem 100%. There's no negatives, there's no problems and stuff like that, and stuff like that. But they are coming into the country illegally. Now, if you care about the legal aspect, I'm going to hate to tell you this. Do you know that the president of the United States is a convicted felon? Did you know that? Because if you really care about the legality of everything, I hate to tell you, the person you are supporting is in fact a criminal. He can't own a gun. I don't even think he can leave the U.S. He might be able to leave the U.S. I don't actually know. I don't know. Actually, let me look that up. Can Trump leave the U.S.? I just see people talking about as a felon. Donald Trump can no longer travel to 38 countries. What are these countries here? Countries globally have strict entry requirements to protect residents and maintain national security. So apparently, Trump can't. And now, once again, he's the president. If they organize things, this isn't full on true, but theoretically, Argentina, Australia, Canada, China, Cuba, India, Iran, Israel, Japan, Kenya, Macau, New Zealand, South Africa, Taiwan, UK, the United States. What countries will deny entry if it's discovered you are a convicted felon? So I don't even, once again, this is just a fucking list, right? But yeah, Joe Biden was a rapist. Trump is also solving solutions with other countries. Yeah, he seems to really like Russia. I'm glad that, the Republican Party, if you had asked a Republican 5 or 6 years ago, their thoughts on Russia, drastically different now that Trump has, kind of become, Putin's puppet a little bit here. I know how the debates and arguments work with people like you, right? You bring things up, you bring facts, you try to bring up specific arguments, and you just keep jumping around over, and give me a reason why you like the Democrats. Yeah, sure. I personally support extreme progressives, and I guess Bernie Sanders is a independent, but other people like AOC and stuff like that, because I believe it shouldn't really be a party issue, right? It shouldn't be a Republican and Democrats at each other's throat the whole time, right? It's really capitalism is a huge issue that causes most of our issues, right? And so I really don't think it should have to be a Democrat versus a Republican thing. I think the real fight is the poor versus the ultra wealthy, and I think it is insane to me that Trump is trying to slash all of our government programs and our government entities to continue funding tax breaks for the ultra wealthy. So I support Democrats that are extremely progressive and believe in things like trying to stop these loopholes and stop giving fucking tax breaks to the ultra wealthy, right? Because as we learned from Reaganomics and trickle down economics, that does not work. If you give a rich person more money, they do not in fact trickle that down. They just hoard it and buy their 7th yacht, right? And so I think there needs to be more accountability in terms of, reining in the wealth inequality. I also believe in global warming, right? And I don't think that we should just be drill, baby drill, as Trump says. And so I, am a huge supporter of environmental protections. I'm also a huge supporter of LGBTQ plus rights. And a lot of this goes with the empathy. So I'm going to be voting and supporting for the party that isn't trying to strip away rights from trans folk, from gay folk, and from women making reproductive decisions about their body. That's another instance. It's just in general, there's just a million things I could say, right? When you said it should not be a fight between the Republicans and the Democrats, I'm assuming you're going to say something else. But yeah, that's why I like the Democrats. And that's why I'm so sad, right, that the Democratic Party isn't fighting hard enough, because it is so obvious that just trying to appeal to the moderates, and that being your strategy, right? Saying that the Republican, candidate is awful and you should, let's be a bipartisan, right? And even though that's overall what I would say should work, right? That strategy should work for the average American. It doesn't, right? The average American doesn't even vote, right? And so that's just not enough to convince people to vote, right? And so the Democratic Party instead needs to focus on these progressive ideas, like socialized healthcare or universal healthcare. I know some people very scared of the socialism word, and stuff like that, and get tangible wins for the American people. Right. It shouldn't be a fight between them. I am fine with LGBTQ plus. Well, that's good. I'm glad you are. I very much am glad with you are. Your party that you're supporting does not. And in fact, in Texas, let me give you a tangible example. I live in Texas, an extremely red state. We talked about it at the beginning of the stream. In Texas, they are actively trying to make it illegal, a felony, to be trans. I don't even know what that fucking means, what that looks like, right? But and in other Republican states, right? We talked about this on previous episodes. They are, now that, it's like there always has to be an enemy, right? So, right now the current enemy seems to be trans people, right? Republicans were the party that were fighting against gay marriage before it was legal, right? And in some instances, there are some Republicans already trying to pass laws in their state, making it illegal again to be gay married, right? There's some super far right Republicans, right, that are even talking about how they want to get rid of interracial marriage, right? And so it just, it's hard to do that. I don't think it's okay that men are changing their genders to women and women changing their gender. I'm not going to have this discussion and argument with you right now because we have other things to talk about. I've talked about this a bunch of stuff, but it's just always made into way more of an issue than it really is. But either way, let's move on. Let's move on, right? Besides Donald Trump being a felon. So, and obviously you have, there's certain Democratic leaders that we're going to talk about that I think are doing a really good job at coming out and trying to take the gloves off, right? Not be the stereotypical, Democrat that is just going to play by the rules and everything, So this is just an example. Tim Walz took a jab at Chuck Schumer. He said, I believe Chuck 100% believes that he made a decision that reduced the pain and the risk to Americans. The Minnesota governor said in the latest episode of Democrat California Governor Gavin Newsom, who we're going to talk about this and the podcast in a little bit, released on Tuesday. I see it now that we're in a point where that pain is coming anyway. And I think we gave up our leverage. And I really, really agree with that, right? We're already at that point. We're already at the point of Trump and Doge dismantling the entire government, right? Or multiple instances of it, right? And so I understand the sentiment that Chuck Schumer was going with of like, okay, well, if we do let a government shutdown happen, Trump is just going to have even more ways, right, to dismantle the government. He will probably be able to dismantle the government even better. But that's already happening. We're already there. We're already where Trump is refusing to work with the checks and balances that are supposed to work in our system. He's refusing judges' orders, right, and court orders. He's calling for the impeachment of these specific judges, and even like threatening their families, right? I mean, it's just a couple insane specific things like Trump canceling. Like Trump tried to say that all of Biden's pardons were canceled because it was signed by an auto pen. And even though a lot of the executive orders that Trump has signed recently and pardons have been with an auto pen, and then he's canceling the security details of like Biden's kids while then announcing that to the general public, right? But, it's not inciting violence, I guess. So Walz's comments are the latest in the course of Democratic backlash aimed at Schumer over the Senate Democrat leader's support for the Republican-backed stopgap measure last week to keep the government funded and prevent a government shutdown. Let me see if this is to the American people who don't do this for a living and is out doing their job. They said, they passed this budget and they agreed with Donald Trump. And now we all own that. Walz said, I think you should have made Donald Trump justify why things were getting so bad. Walz remarks about the funding controversy come on the heels of his recent critiques of the 2024 Harris-Walz campaign, where he said the ticket did not take enough risks. He said he, along with other Democrats, should have made a stronger effort to engage with voters, particularly through town halls. Walz doubled down on the criticism of his party during his interview with Newsom, saying the lack of coordination among Democrats on how to approach the funding debate only reinforced perceptions that the Democratic Party is fragmented. I think the public is saying, you guys weren't even coordinated on that. Right. And everything he said, I think is 100% true. Right. Absolutely 100% true. Also, welcome, Real Callum. I've been doing good, railing on the Democrats here a little bit, for a change. So part of that, right. I think in this interview he did with this, he talked about how a lot of some of the things he had talked about previously was that it almost felt like the Democratic Party and that campaign put a muzzle on Tim Walz. Because for those of you guys that don't know, Tim Walz was like a very progressive pick. I really like Tim Walz, right? He is Minnesota, the governor of Minnesota, right? He's done a lot of really good wins specifically for like free lunches for kids in schools, because it is proven that if kids are fed, right, they learn more. Surprise, surprise. And when you're talking about low income, families, low income areas, having free lunches, you can talk to a lot of people who have been through poverty, right? And free lunches are a huge part of that. Now, with the Department of Education cuts, guess what? That makes that a lot harder, right? So that's why I love Tim Walz as a VP pick. And I love Tim Walz. I'm very interested to see if he's going to try to do, another run at something here in, 2026 or 2028 or whatever. Because he literally, if you guys remember the debates, right, between JD Vance and Tim Walz, like Tim Walz is literally saying like, yo, I did these things in Minnesota, and it's literally helped. I've given free lunch to schools, and what was the meme here? Let me find this meme here. Tim Walz, kids laughing when he signs food bill. Let me see this. I'm trying to find the start comparison versus other person. Okay. I can't find it here. But I did find it here. This is just a picture of when Tim Walz signed the bill, right, for getting the free school meals, right? And then this is like a Republican governor. Oh no, here it is. Tim Walz, after he signed the bill providing free breakfast and lunch. Oh, I don't know where this is here. Open image in a new tab here. And then Sarah Huckabee Sanders signing a bill legalizing child labor. Just the difference of it, right? Also, I missed chat. For some hopping on the Twitch end. Hey, welcome someone up. We need to focus on how to make store food rent to cost less than the cost of living over here is so bad. My social security is getting to the point where I can't afford anything. Yeah. And it's like, so we need to run on things like this, right? Do you think the people in Minnesota, do you think Tim Walz's constituents like this happening? They do. They fucking do, you know? Psych student here can confirm that if you eat, your brain functions better. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so Tim Walz was a great progressive pick here, like an insanely good progressive pick. And he was the one that was like calling some of these things that the Republicans were talking about, controlling women's bodies, all this stuff, calling them weird. Right. And a big part of their campaign is, there was the specific instance where, Donald Trump was on the Joe Rogan podcast, which is, very big. At the time, it was the number one listened to podcast, at least in America. And now it's been overtaken, I think, by a more left-leaning podcast. I don't know the name of it. But Donald Trump went on it, right? Just was able to spread misinformation for hours and hours and hours, right? So, Kamala Harris is like, hey, we'd like to do an interview, with Joe Rogan, with These Days Work, right? And Joe Rogan was like, well, I normally film on these days, and I want the format to be like this. Kamala's team was like, well, that won't really work. We could fly you out. Do you want it? Do you want to fly, out? And then, Joe Rogan was like, no, I want to do it on my own thing. And then so they just didn't go, right? And I think a big problem of that was on Joe Rogan, right? He should have just sucked it up, but he doesn't have to, right? He doesn't have to. I understand that. And so this is where the fault was on the Democrats. Okay, you can't get Kamala Harris on there. Okay, fucking send Tim Walz to the Joe Rogan show, right? Like the Democratic Party, needed to, obviously there's all of those infographics, right? There are way more right-leaning political content creators. It is like fucking disproportionately so much more right-leaning political content on the internet compared to left-leaning content, right? And white men in particular was a huge voting group towards Trump, right? And if so I'm just thinking of a reality, right? If Tim Walz had gone on the Joe Rogan podcast and done his Coach Walz, talked like a fucking normal person, because that's the problem people have with Democrat, some of the establishment Democrats, right? They're just snooty and snuck up and shit. Then you get someone like Tim Walz who's, these Republicans are weird. What the fuck? If they hadn't put a goddamn muzzle on him, where would we be, right? And that is an issue of the Democratic Party. They're scared of going too far left-leaning when that is what will get people to fucking vote for them, right? That's what gets you the win. When Tim Walz in Minnesota gives free kids lunches, right? And it is a universally, besides from Republicans, universally liked and approved thing, right? Now, when Tim Walz has a debate with J.D. Vance on the vice presidential debate, that's something he can talk about. This is something I did, a fundamental, tangible thing that I did to help the American people, the average working class people. Because right now, it's literally just Trump and his allies, right, trying to raise money for continued tax cuts for the ultra wealthy, and he's tricking the average American into believing everything he says by inciting culture wars, inciting, the illegal immigrants are the problem. They're the evil. The trans people, they're the evil. It's just constant scapegoating so you don't pay attention to what the Republicans are actually doing, right? Versus actual tangible wins like this. And so I really, really hope Tim Walz in particular is going to take a crack at some stuff, the biggest problem was the Dems played too safe in the election, took a lot for granted. Tim Walz is a moron. His state employee pensions fund has 1 million shares of Tesla stock. His stupidity cost hundreds of millions in asset losses. What? His state employee pension fund has 1 million shares of Tesla stock. Okay, first of all, I don't even know if what you're talking, I'll look into what you're talking about, but do you understand pensions that doesn't have That doesn't have, oh, because you're saying because he's shitting on fucking Tesla. Because Tim Walz has no, let me look this up. What pension and stocks does Tim Walz have? Because he has no stock. Let's see. But he does have a bunch of pensions because he had years and years and years of, fucking public service, right? Moron, his free lunch program had fraud of $230 million in scams. The two ringleaders who are friends of Walz were found guilty on all counts yesterday. Okay, let's check this. Let's look this up. Let's look this up. Let's fact check this. Tim Walz, because I'm always about, let's look at the facts. Tim Walz free lunch fraud. Let's look this up. Yeah, could you support a thing here? I don't see anything recent. I'm seeing articles. Let's see here. I'm seeing articles from 2024. Let's see here. Also, yeah, be civil. Like, if you're going to come here, have a conversation and have a debate. You don't have to be like so fucking insane, dude. That's literally like the right. They can't go enough time without like being just so vitriol, you know? Like, have you guys known that? Like, it's just like, I've never, it's just insane. It's just absolutely insane. I'm trying to find something. I'm seeing op-eds here. Let's see here. I'm seeing op-eds talking about how there was a $250 million scheme. Let's see. In the Feeding Our Future Fraud. Okay. I found something to actually look into it here. Feeding the Future Fraud trial here. Let's see here. Okay. Let's look into this. Federal jury found 2 co-defendants guilty on all counts for their roles in the sprawling Feeder Future Meal fraud scheme. The now defunct nonprofit founders and executive director, co-owner of Minneapolis restaurant that was under Feeding Our Future sponsorship, was found to have conspired to steal $250 million in taxpayer funds through the federal child nutrition program. Bach was found guilty on 7 counts, said was convicted on staggering 21 counts. They face prison time. A full breakdown. Let's see here. I'm trying to find details here. Let's see here. Thompson said significant prison time awaits. Tim Walz reacted to the verdict, saying these are criminals who preyed on a system that was meant to feed children. It was organized and they continue to lie about that. I'm so grateful. A guilty verdict for Mrs. Bach, who appears to be the ringleader of this on all counts. Walz also stated that the state is working to recoup as much of the stolen money as possible. I think this case sparked a needed conversation, bipartisan conversation of how we can try to prevent these things. But I remind people that nobody in state government was involved in any crime. We just need to make sure that we put up more firewalls, more security, and more ability to make sure people don't prey on the government here. So it seems, let's see here. To have $250 million fraud that could have actually spent, we're doing an independent audit and stuff like that. So first thing I'll say, right, is over 70 defendants, most friends with Walz. You need to provide some like evidence to this. I'm trying to look things up here, right? But yes, I have more left-leaning views, but I'm honestly often turned away from a lot of left-leaning political content creators due to the clickbaity, over-exaggerated titles. I will say though, I understand what you're saying, but what you were saying earlier in this in this chat, you were like, oh, I hate like all the illegal immigrants, like they're all flooding our borders, like. That in itself is a clickbaity, over-exaggerated title, right? And stuff like this. This is why people don't like talking about politics. People get too heated, shit happens, then people start falling out. I appreciate you keeping this debate not a verbal abuse boxing match here. He is lying. A federal judge in Scott County issued rulings here. So I'm trying to find more details about that. I'll say, right? Let's see. The one thing I'll say is until I find more of this stuff here, just because people are going to take advantage of the system, of every system in general, right? Like everything in general, right? That's how capitalism works. People win and get taken advantage of, like when they take advantage of people, right? And so there is going to be fraud in our government, right? Like once again, I don't even have a problem with us taking a look at like, you know, a lot of government institutions, seeing if there's some fraud, right? I want to look at the military spending. Can we talk about the military spending, right? Like there's fraud in fucking everything, right? So I'm glad, right? If there was flaw, like I'm glad that there was, I'm glad that justice was served, but right, that doesn't mean, oh, so we should just never try to feed the kids, or Tim Walz was secretly trying to do this to fund all of this money, right? Like that's such a stretch, you know, like it's such a stretch. I still can't believe we have a felon as president. If you have Elon Musk and basically infinite money, you can excuse, pardon anything. And when you find the state of Minnesota pension fund has Tesla stock, you will look more foolish, do better research. Are you saying that because Tim Walz is against Tesla and he's talking about that? And are you saying like, oh, that's so foolish. Nobody should talk bad about something that's going to make him lose money, because if you talk bad about Tesla, then the Tesla stock's going to go down and you're going to have less money. Well, guess what? Some people care less about money. It's not about money for some people, for everything, right? Like it's not always about money, right? If I was talking with my dad, right, he would probably be like, all he cares about politically is money. Right? Money, right? And there are other things about that. Maybe, right? Just maybe Tim Walz has a problem that we have fucking a Nazi sympathizer that bought his way into the federal government and is breaking the Constitution on multiple counts and destroying so many aspects of our government, right? Maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe we should joke and talk about how, you know, the CEO of Tesla is doing all this shit, right? Maybe we should, right? Because it's not only about money. And I and that's why I try to bring up the empathy thing, but I know so many people don't have empathy glands. I don't know. Right. And so jury convicted of alleged ringleader of massive pandemic food fraud scheme on all counts. Of a massive, part of it was because of the, there was a lot of fraud with the pandemic stuff, right? Her role stole $250 million from a program meant to feed children in need. Because also everywhere I'm seeing here, it still seems like the children were being fed, right? I mean, it sucks that money could be feeding the kids better, but it's not like, you know, founder of Feeding Our Future. The group at the heart of the plot was one of 70 defendants charged, which prosecutors said was the nation's single largest fraud scheme. Minnesota case has drawn attention for an attempt to bribe a juror in an earlier trial with tampering witnesses. 37 defendants have pleaded guilty. 5 were convicted. Charged with money laundering, pocketed $2 million, $5 million. Largest COVID fraud scheme. So many people were trying to be helpers. Bach and said were thieves. They used their time of crisis, you know. So when you have a pool of money there, I mean, that's literally what is happening. That is literally what is happening in our military, right? Like that's literally happening in our military, right? But we literally have, right, the stopgap bill. Let's keep increasing it, right? Right? This bill, let's increase, right, defense spending by about $6 billion, right? So I'm fine. I'm glad. First of all, I want to say thank you for bringing that up, because once again, I always talk about if I'm proven wrong, if I'm talking, you know, like I didn't know that there was some fraud with that program, right? Like I didn't know that, you know, and I'm glad I do. Do I think that means that Tim Walz shouldn't have signed this bill? Shouldn't have attempted to do this, right? And it seems like they're like the due process is happening. People are getting charged. They're saying they're going to be in fucking prison, right? They're trying to recuperate their money, right? And so to believe that this is all like a grand conspiracy on Tim Walz's case is I feel one, misrepresenting the actual situation, and I will look more into this, right? Because once again, this is the first I've heard of this. But two, if we're gonna talk about that, Once again, can we talk about any of these other instances? Can we talk about why we're not investigating all of the fraud and stuff going on with defense spending, right? Can we not, talk about some of that stuff? Because there's a lot of fraud in the government. The government is very inefficient, right? Fucking insurance systems and healthcare. If we had universal healthcare, that would make things better, right? So there's fraud everywhere. And so on that part, I'm glad you brought that up. You saying that I'm foolish because, Tim Walz shouldn't be talking shit about Tesla when the pension fund that he earned from years and years and years and years and years and years and years of public service, technically he's gonna lose money if Tesla loses stock. That is just so indicative of where your mindset is in everything has to be about money and greed and greed and greed, And it's just like, no, maybe he just is genuinely speaking out against the bullshit that is happening, Let me catch up here on chat here. Let's see here. Let's say just enough to pay off pretty much anyone in power, but yeah, it's almost not, it's not almost cult-like, it is cult-like. Throwing the Nazi gang sign like it was not a big deal. Yeah, and everybody trying to say Elon Musk, that wasn't a Nazi salute, right? And they're bringing up screenshots of other people waving and taking out a thing. You watch the videos. There's multiple camera angles. There's literally a camera angle of Elon Musk at that thing doing the Nazi salute twice, right? Very, purposely. And then there's an alternate camera angle where you can see some fucking old fucking grandpa Nazi saluting with him after the fact, right? It's insane. It's enough to say something, but Tim Walz seems to actually be doing something about the fraud, right? And I mean, whether he was the one that instigated the shit going on or not, right? It seems like this was more of the courts doing this and stuff like that. Because he does. Well, this was the pension stuff, right? That he's earned, right? But he was running for president. He's the governor, right? He's got a lot to do, right? So unless there's a lot of evidence that's shown to me that Tim Walz was orchestrating this whole thing and he actually didn't care about the kids, he just wanted this. No, it's probably what happened, right? Fucking government spending, right? And there's a lot of money, so people are gonna fucking try to fraud. It just literally happens on every aspect of the government, The reason why is because every time Doge comes up with government waste, it cuts into someone's wallet. The reason why what? If you really think that was a Nazi salute, Americans are just dumb. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this here. Elon Nazi salute. Let's watch the video. I'd like you to tell me this isn't a Nazi salute here.
There are elections.
And if you think this isn't a Nazi salute, I would ask that you post a video of you doing this yourself to the internet. If you don't think this is a Nazi salute,
there are elections that
I think
that
you should
come
post
and go.
yourself doing
Some
this.
elections are, important. Some are not. But this one, this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
Twice.
My heart goes out to you.
Oh, my heart goes out to you. Let me see if I can find Elon Musk Nazi salute alternate camera angle. So if you're saying this isn't a Nazi salute, would you be okay to post a video of you doing this yourself here? Because this is an example here of everyone being like, oh, well, the Democrats did this too. It's like, oh yeah, Democrats did this too. Fucking libs of TikTok right here. And it's like, are they going to show the actual, oh yeah. Okay, well, here's a video where they're saying Obama did the Nazi salute. Let's see what this is here.
Fear the job losses were going to be.
So we can see him raise his arm there. Apologies, that video was a little laggier than I had hoped for, but it was absolutely not a salute in any
if you act, oh, here's the Elizabeth Warren one, right?
That's when she was saying goodbye to the crowd.
States. Thank you.
Wave, right? So we can see not a
Thank you.
Why? My grandfather in Germany did plenty when he killed Russians for Hitler. Wait, my
My heart
grandfather
goes out-
in Germany did plenty when he killed Russians for Hitler. It's literally, my heart goes out to you. You hold the salute until the leader doesn't. Then again, Americans think men can be women. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and ban you. Yeah, this isn't a spot for bigotry here, so you can go do bigotry elsewhere. But yeah, so just a little bit insane. Just a little bit insane. Just a little bit insane here. I said your maps today, so I'm tired as fuck. Well, probably a little bit of an exhausting thing to come into here. But yeah, so I'm not gonna keep getting sidetracked by people that are just so delusioned, right? Like I don't know how you have a conversation with someone, right? Let's Steve Bannon, Nazi salute here.
The only way we don't have victory if we surrender. The only way that they win is we retreat. And we're not going to retreat. We're not going to surrender. We're not going to quit. Fight, fight, fight. Amen. God bless you.
Now that wasn't
You are
as
amazing.
that wasn't as so I mean, but also as we've talked about before, right? If it walks like a Nazi, if it talks like a Nazi, it's probably a Nazi, right? Maybe if someone wasn't doing things that made them feel like they're a Nazi, right? Maybe people wouldn't think that. Let's just say everything Elon has everything anti-Semitic Elon has done. I'm just trying to find some examples here. Let's go in the past here. Let's just see if I can find anything here. Because like you just have to look at his Twitter account, right? And let me see tweets, images. Let's see here. Magneto. See, I don't want to get too okay. Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of diabolical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest shit now about Western Jewish populations coming to the disturbing. You have said actual truth. Like I really don't want to waste. Like once again, I want to talk about Democrats here. Like it's so funny. I'm trying to have a conversation here about like actual problems in the Democratic Party, because I am not just someone that plays politics like a fucking sports team, right? I actually want to look into the things that are a little bit crazy and stuff like that, right? And it's so hard when people just come in here, right? And it's just like deny the fucking truth, right? And stuff like that. And there's just so much anti-trans sentiment. And I would like to make it very clear that anyone that believes that type of shit can go fuck yourself. I don't know. Like, I don't want you in my community. I'm not trying to convince you that trans people should exist because it's just not worth having that debate, right? I'm going to have normal conversations with rational people here that aren't just, so hate-filled in their heart, I'm sorry, but Elon literally sounds like Hitler. If you read the translated speeches, they say this is for the people, and that's literally what he was doing there. That's some crazy shit. Yeah, reminder that there are still veterans that fought against this and what this represents. And stuff like that here. But yeah, yeah, make sure you take care of yourself, Atarax. Steve Bannon is such a dickhead, bro. Oh my God. Yeah. And so, but either way, getting a little bit back on track here. Now that we, kicked all the transphobes out of here, talking about Tim Walz and stuff. And I'm glad about being sidetracked about the fraud, about some of the stuff. I do want to look more into that, right? Because I genuinely, that's why I like doing these as streams, because I don't know everything, right? And I'm not trying to pretend that I know everything, but I feel like I know a lot, right? And so I'm glad at being proven wrong sometimes, right? I want to look up the facts, right? Because I'm going to talk about so often. I care about the facts with y'all. You know what I mean? But either way, Democrats, right, try to appeal to middle America, right? And it's not going to work because of everyone coming in here trying to, fuck with my, not fuck with me, but, just like, it's so interesting, right? When you have these Trump supporters coming in these conversations and having these chats, right? It's always, they're just spitting. It's like, you can tell they're not happy in their life. Like they're so filled with hatred. Right. You know what I mean? And there's nothing you can say that will change their mind on anything. Right. Like someone tells me, hey, there's a lot of fraud with, Tim Walz stuff. OK, let me look into that because that's like a serious thing. OK, let's look into it. OK, so looks like all of these people got charged and they're going to serve prison time. And that's really good. Cool. OK, so it sounds like normal business, right? Because once again, I'm not saying that there should be fraud, but like you can't say, oh, well, we shouldn't try to do anything for the people because, all this fraud. What about all the fraud going on, right? With other parts of the government that are being ignored, right? And so it just feels like a cherry picked thing, right? But I can look at that. I can be like, oh, wow, yeah, that is crazy. That I'm definitely going to keep my eye on that. Now, if this keeps happening, right? If Tim Walz, they move it to a different organization and there's fraud there again, and then like, oh, okay, man, maybe there is a pattern. Maybe this doesn't work. Maybe there's not enough safety rails on here. But is the answer no? We shouldn't feed the kids? No, because we are America, one of the best countries in the world, apparently, right? We should be able to feed our kids, right? We really should feed our kids. I saw a thing about how cruelty is pretty much the new flex, where people who can afford it to be the cruelest often don't face the chance to experience the effects of their cruelty firsthand. Shut the fuck up. I know you're talking about me. Well, yeah, if I say there's people in here being vitriol and you were the only person being vitriol, I don't know, maybe yeah. I don't have a problem calling people out, Mr. Adderall 525. I don't, because I didn't even call anyone out there by name. But if you feel called out, that's probably a little bit sensitive there, right? At this point, we are doomed either way. So I try my best to stay out of the voter BS. Now, I don't know specifically what you're referencing, but I will say, if you are, if you can vote, it is really important, to actually like make sure you're informed and make sure you don't get so exhausted that you won't vote, because that's what they want you to do. They want you to do it. You should go F Kamala Harris. Okay. See, we'll go ahead and do this here. I don't think we have any mods here. Let me do this myself here. Let me do this here myself here. I don't really care. Like that's not that I'm here to have some constructive debates and destructive conversations. And I'm fine. Like once again, I am fine being derailed. Right. I am. Oh, I forgot you were here, Kaiden. Sorry. I could have asked you. I'm fine being derailed if it is for the conversation. Someone just having their feelings hurt and they're like, go fuck Kamala Harris. Go fuck yourself. I don't know. Like get out of my space. I don't know. Right. Like, and I know part of it, and I know I'm shooting myself in the foot because I'm a gaming content creator. Right. And, gaming spaces and gaming content creators tend to skew very far to the right. Like we talked about earlier, right? There's not a whole lot of people on the left that are willing to use their platforms to talk about shit that matters to them. And so even though I know, it's maybe negatively affecting my gaming content, maybe I have a few less bigots watching my gaming content, right? But I want to be as genuine as possible. Right. I want to genuinely have constructive debates. I want to be proven wrong sometimes. I want to look into these things. I want my views to be challenged because I'm not trying to just have an echo chamber of, people that agree with me. Freaking the person that we just banned on Twitch or timed out. I hadn't timed them out for a while because I was fine with being challenged. I'm fine with being challenged. But the second that it's like, oh, well, go fuck Kamala Harris then if you love her so much. Like, your feelings are getting hurt. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to say it, With how capitalism, I missed this here. I just have a issue with people who take it way too far is all. I'm just starting to get to the age where I have to get into politics soon. After my junior year, I'll be going to my basic combat training. So it's kind of being pushed onto my pathway, whether I like it or not. So due to the military career pathway. Yeah, I would just say, you know, always try to look things up for yourself. Things are extremely sensationalized a lot. You know, so it sucks. I will say, I know a lot of people in the military tend to skew right. You know, I'm not quite 100% sure on that. You know, just make sure you're always getting the facts. You're always getting the things, you know, and at the very least, just don't ever get so, you know, fucking disheartened that you try to disengage from the whole system, you know, with how capitalism works. The increase in price means that locally made goods can raise their prices to just shy of the tariff goods, and we have blanket inflated prices. Yeah, we talked about the tariffs and the trade wars last, political stream, and yeah, so I don't want to go too much into that. So my dad's girlfriend really believes Kamala Harris is transgender, and that's why she shouldn't be president. Lol, I'm losing brain cells living here. Yeah, and that's another thing we've talked about. The average American, not very smart, you know, and it's sad. It's really sad, you know, because you have people thinking fucking Obama is a Muslim terrorist. You have people thinking that Kamala is a fucking transgender. Like what the fuck is, like, you know what I mean? And it's just like that's the problem. That is why, right? Anytime a non-voter or a third-party voter tries to tell me that the parties are the same evil, it's that's so untrue. It's not even close, right? There's one filled with hate and vitriol that's only trying to fucking, you know, get tax breaks for the ultra wealthy, right? And all these temporary embarrassed millionaires who think they'll be millionaires in the future, you know, want to do it. Or like the person that was fucking talking about, Tim Walz shouldn't be talking bad about Tesla because, you know, if Tim Walz talks bad about Tesla, well, technically he's going to make less money. Who fucking cares? People don't only care about money. Some people have empathy and morals above money, right? Like, it's insane. Also, if you do decide to vote, please do your own research, not get sucked into the propaganda from, let's be real, all parties. I don't want to see anyone get sucked into that cesspit of misinformation and outright bullshit. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? And that's what I'm trying to do here, right? Obviously, I have my, you know, my opinions and my views and stuff like that, but that's why I'm genuinely actually trying to, you know, be okay with having my views challenged, look into some of these things, right? And form my opinions there. And with what we're talking about today, right, being against the some of the things that the Democratic Party are doing. And so we have a little bit more that I want to talk about here. You know, I always love, that's why I like doing these as streams, right? Because it is nice to have actual normal political, you know, debates and stuff like that. Is it okay to ask without offending anyone, what are the views on each person? Because all I've seen is something about Kamala having communist ways and stuff. And I'd rather understand what's going on if this doesn't offend anyone. Well, and so I'm going to make a future video on Bernie Sanders and AOC and some of the things that I stand for. Everything that, like, the right just has these trigger words, communism, socialism, right? They called Tim Walz a communist because he was getting free lunch for school kids, right? It's just any time that, like, you know, something is like some genuine social program, right? Like whether there turned out to be some fraud in it or not, right? I mean, it seems like they're handling it. Anything that helps people, I feel like it's called socialism or communism, right? One thing that you can do, right, is just look at, specifically, you know, debates, right? You could be watching, say you were voting in the last election, right? Pay attention to the presidential and the VP debates, right? When Kamala Harris was debating Trump, right? All Trump kept talking about was the immigrants. Everything is the fault of the immigrants, and it's all the immigrants' fault, and they're eating the cats and they're eating the dogs, right? And Kamala's talking about, now she waited way too long to have, policies that were going to differ her from the Biden administration, but she did end up having some, right? Like, I think it was like a $10,000 or a $25,000 credit for Americans for their first home purchase was something she was trying to run on. Obviously, she was running on, environmental stuff as well. And stuff like that, capitalist service supporters not understanding humanity. But yeah, so it's and I know that I'm saying this, and I'm someone who is now creating political content, right, on YouTube. But don't only get your political content from YouTube, right? Try to read, from news articles on both sides of the thing. Last episode, right, we were actually looking at some not only like things like AP News and BBC, we were also looking at some Fox News, things and trying to read in the middle, seeing the facts, when there's a presidential debate, and Kamala and Trump are throwing things at each other, right? Go look up fact checks, right? See what is actually correct that the person is saying. Look up the things yourself. Like, say as an example, you're saying, well, I heard Kamala's a communist, right? If you typed in on Google, is Kamala Harris a communist, right? The answer would be no, right? You would be able to find legitimate sources that don't say that, right? So just don't get your political content only from me, because first of all, I'm only making a political video twice a month. And two, I'm not a professional. I'm just trying to do my best to be a small little voice on the left in the sea of just right-wing just vitriol, all these right-wing people coming in the chat. Like, you're not making your side look good, right? The way to make yourself look good is come in here and tell me that Tim Walz, that stuff had fraud. And then I look into it and I'm like, oh shit, and then we talk about that, right? And keep doing that. Keep providing evidence that I am wrong and you are right. Because the other people that came in here, right, they're just like, well, like whatever they're saying, it really shows, any sort of social policy will be dismissed with slippery slope to communism. Yeah, exactly. And welcome pod, everybody else here. Seems like you're trying to sell me a Ground News sponsorship. Oh, is that the one that like looks at both sides? I think I've seen a sponsorship for them before or something like that, I've heard there's actually some decent things, right? And stuff like that. Provide evidence and try not to be a dick about it in the process. Yeah. And I have no problem being a dick and being like, oh, your feelings hurt when they start doing that too. And then obviously, ultimately, right? I mean, because it just makes all these videos 2 hours and nobody's watching the 2 hour YouTube streams, right? That's why I was theoretically trying to make these shorter. But whatever. It's just, it's a creative outlet for me. And for those of you guys that want to, hold on here, along with me on the ride, and yeah, Ground News is that news bias meter thing or whatever, It's a shame the Tim Walz fraud guy wasn't more civil. He could have been constructive. Yeah, I don't think we banned him. I think I don't know what it was, But yeah, like that's the thing. I'm fine having people come in here and challenge my views. I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine looking into it. But the second that it is so obvious, where there's like, well, go fuck Kamala Harris, or oh, well, Tim Walz is, you're a moron. You should be doing political content. You should know that he's going to lose money by talking bad about Tesla. It's like, are you not like literally? Are you only thinking about like capitalism money? It's insane, but so either way, to kind of wrap this up, because I don't want this to be another 2 hour video and it's already almost, an hour and a half, video or whatever, right? That like, you can't negotiate with terrorists, right? You can't have a conversation with people that are not willing to have conversations with you in good faith, right? That goes from debating people like is happening on these streams. And it goes with, the Democratic Party in the future needing to realize they need to run on popular policies. They need to advertise their popular policies. They got to brag about it, right? Don't be shy about what you're doing. Brag about all the stuff that you're doing and helping with people, and it's insane. And so this is one example that I do want to talk about it, right? Governor Gavin Newsom, right, created his podcast called This is Gavin Newsom, right? So some of the quotes and the articles, I guess he did 2 days ago, an episode with Tim Walz, right? And the thing that a lot of Democrats were shitting on Gavin Newsom is his first episode was with Charlie Kirk, an extremely disgusting conservative, right? And then Michael Savage, another conservative commentator. I don't even know who that is, but then fucking Steve Bannon, who we just showed, right? Earlier. And then he has Tim Walz, right? And do I think it is important to have these conversations? Because once again, right, we talked about how I wish Tim Walz had gone on the Joe Rogan podcast, right? I think it's important, but it was really weird that a Democrat here is going to make a podcast and fucking immediately start talking about how like he has issue with trans people in some instances, like. And in the because once again, there's conversations to be had, right? There's constructive conversations to be had with any of these conversations, whether it's fraud, whether it's trans issues, right? Whatever it is, there's conversations to be had. But you are not going to have a good faith argument with this motherfucker, Charlie Kirk. It's not going to happen. So it just felt like, oh, okay, we have another Democrat that's just trying to play both sides and try to find this middle ground, right? And I think it is important. I think it is super important for some of this to be happening. It just felt really weird. And I don't have much to say about this. It just, I understood why a lot of Democrats were giving Gavin Newsom a lot of shit, because if anything, you're giving some of these conservatives a platform too. Right. I think it's important. I think it's more important to go on their platforms, right, and try to speak to their people than give some of these people platforms, right? But I'm glad, right, that Tim Walz was here, right? And so, I didn't know that Tim Walz, this was an episode here. I was more going to be like, why are you fucking only talking to fucking alt-right people, But yeah. That guy, Michael Savage is the guy from Mythbusters. I thought he was cool. But yeah, like, so middle ground is not going to work, right? It didn't work last election, and it won't work again, right? So AOC and Bernie, right? They have been doing, I didn't find an actual thing here. Bernie, obviously, what's it called? Bernie has been doing this, tour, the Fighting Oligarchy tour, and AOC's now joining a bunch of the stops and stuff like that. And here, let me actually see if I can find, let me see, Fighting Oligarchy tour videos here. I just want to show you guys here. Oh, this was 3 hours ago. So this was with AOC,
and we're gonna take our country
Las Vegas.
back. That's what we're here to do. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Corporations.
Like, so they're holding these rallies, everywhere. Now there's been some videos where like it's so crowded they literally can't even like have enough people go into the stadium, and Bernie Sanders has to come out and talk and stuff like that. But in a Democratic Party, right, full of these fuckers, these 10 Democrats who are just going to let the Republicans get away with everything that they want, right? Chuck Schumer, Dick Durbin, Catherine Cortez Masto, John Fetterman, Maggie Hassan, Gary Peters, Brian Schatz, Kristen Grilliban, Jean Shaheen, and then Angus King, right? All in a world of those type of Democrats, there are also, right? Bernie Sanders is an independent, and we're going to talk about this at the end of the video here. But a lot of the, more progressive side of the Democratic Party is trying to let the American people we're trying to fight for you. Like, we really are, Bernie Sanders in particular has constantly been trying to, fight for, socialized healthcare, universal healthcare, if that makes it sound better. And things like the Green New Deal. And I know there's a lot of flaws and stuff with a lot of this stuff. But like, it's like, we need to be running on things that are going to actually help. And it sucks because you would hope that the average American would understand the Republican Party's interests aren't for them, right? Unless, once again, you're someone who hates gay people and hates trans people and, hates all illegal immigrants and hates anyone that's not white. And in that case, I'm not even trying to have a conversation with you. There's no conversation that I could convince you, otherwise. The average Republican or the average person, just, I guess, it's hard for them to see that the Republican Party is not in their best interest. Or, maybe this last election, it was also part, fucking not enough people voting because they're not motivated by any Democrats. And so it's important to, praise the people either working with the Democratic Party or part of the Democratic Party like AOC for genuinely trying to speak to the people, let them be heard, genuinely trying to fight for those types of things and stuff like that. This was an article I had found here called "Democrats Are Desperately Searching for New Leaders, AOC Stepping into the Void." This is just talking about a little bit here. Also, yeah, I use uBlock Origin. Not on YouTube. I disable it on YouTube though, because I feel like that would be a little bit hypocritical, right? I am concerned about election integrity coming up in 2026, but I don't have enough tangible evidence to outright say anything. I've only really heard of possible, election rigging, suppression, and apparently Trump saying his voters won't need to vote again in 2026. Yeah, I've seen some of that. That's been really scary. There's also been a couple instances of Trump like almost sounding like he slipped up saying that this most recent election was rigged. And it's like, I just don't want to be a Trumper. I don't want to be like Trump, where they were all just like, you know, caused insurrection, saying the election was rigged and stuff like that. So it's like really hard to talk about stuff like that without sounding like them, right? But I understand what you're saying. There are some sketchy things, right? And it's like, at this point, as the average voter, the average American, all we can really do is just try to vote, try to you know, take power back, right? And it's going to be, you know, if we recover from this, it's going to be, you know, decades, you know, of recovering from the dismantling of the American government, right? I didn't even know this. I think we might have talked about this in a previous political stream. Under the Reagan administration, the FAA, there was a strike going on with the FAA workers, and Reagan signed an order or something and said, it was either 24 or 48 hours to go back to work or you are fired. And on that day, or after that time frame came up, like 3,000 to 5,000 FAA workers, maybe it was like, I think it was like close to 3,000 FAA workers got fired. And since then, I mean, I think the FAA has been understaffed like almost always, right? But we have been struggling to fill that, you know, up, right? And then we have Trump and Doge coming in, firing a bunch more people. Now, I think only like 300 to 500 people have been fired from the FAA because of all this recent stuff. But when we're, you know, it's like, so it's going to, so I hope, right? The hope that we can have is just to keep educating people, you know, keep doing community outreach, keep building community, and, you know, hopefully, you know, pay attention to these Democratic leaders that are genuinely trying to say, to do stuff, right? And stuff like that, you know, yeah. So, but yeah. So, yeah, here, we'll fact check the Trump says, let me see here. Let's see here. Let me try to find, oh, wow. Yeah. So this is just like the first fact check I could find. Fact check. Did Trump say they rigged the election and I became president? Here's the full quote. Claim. During a news conference with FIFA President Gianni Infantino, I butchered that, in March of 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump said they rigged the election and I became president. Rating. Correct. Although the footage is unaltered and the quote is authentic, it's unclear whether Trump was referring to the 2020 or 2024 election, right? So, I mean, I guess you could like be like, oh, well, you know, he said, you know, he could have been meaning the 2020 election, right? I mean, it could just be like a Biden slip up thing, but there's been a couple instances.
It was so sad because I said, can you imagine I'm not going to be president? And that's too bad. And then what happened is they rigged the election and I became president. So that was a good thing. That was a good thing. That was quite an achievement for both of us. So I'll be president during the World Cup and during the Olympics, which we were very.
So it's like, you know, it's like, are those just slip ups? Is it a slip up because it's true? Right. But I don't want to get derailed on that, but there is, I understand what you're talking about, you know? And yeah, obviously Elon buying Twitter, that was a whole big part of it, right? All the disinformation that got pumped on Twitter, you know. But you know, to kind of wrap us up here, since we're already now getting to around 2 hours, you know, I just wanted to read some parts of this here. Obviously, you know, AOC has been one of the people like Bernie Sanders, who is super outspoken about a lot of this stuff, and is, you know, talking with the American people, you know, being relatable and trying to actually speak up, right? Because so many people are mad at the Democratic Party, myself included. That's why we're making this video, because it doesn't seem like they're doing enough, right? And so I really think it's important to focus and praise when the people in the Democratic Party are actually trying to, you know, use their voice for good, you know? And so as Democrats scramble to find an authentic and effective messenger for the second Trump administration, there's a growing desire to elevate, you know, AOC within the party in some way, according to interviews with a dozen Democratic lawmakers. She was one of the most outspoken Democrats, right, torching Chuck Schumer, like we talked about, for allowing a Republican funding bill to advance in the Senate. Publicly urged AOC, someone else publicly urged AOC to launch a primary challenge against Schumer in 2028 if he runs for re-election. And several House Democrats told NBC that her colleagues are also privately pushing her to do that as well at a party retreat. And she's now on the road, like we just showed that stream from literally today in Las Vegas, with Senator Bernie Sanders, on, all of these things. They're talking on college campuses, going to Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, drawing massive crowds. Whether people like her or not, she can speak, she can get to a crowd, and it's just in a world of, just fucking Chuck Schumer's. It's nice to have that. Right. But then you have her politics are just too far left for this party. Right. A chair of a state party that sends a large number of delegates to Democratic presidential conventions, who was granted anonymity to speak candidly, said AOC as a potential national candidate. I don't agree with most of her policy positions, but she's showing fight, which a lot of people are looking for in their members of Congress to do, and they're not seeing it, right? And so that does kind of speak into the fact that even the Democratic Party, right? There were instances where AOC, I think, tried to get in a power position in the Democratic Party kind of recently, and a lot of the establishment Democrats were against that, right? Were against her getting that power, right? And stuff like that, So it's important to look at, like, and that's the thing, right? Going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the stream and stuff like that, right? The Democratic Party is way more wide than, because here, let me actually bring in some MS Paint here, right? Let's bring some MS Paint in here. Okay. So if the average, right? So this is like the moderates, right? And I'm talking about other countries right now. Right? Other countries, actually, no, let's do ours. Because we're US centric, right? So let's start with US. Say we think that this is where moderates are, right? And then this is where, the Republican Party is, right? And this is where, the Democratic Party is, right? Say we think that's the case, right? Whatever it is. Now, in other countries, it actually is like, it's like something like, oh, I'm so bad at this. I'm so bad at this. Fucking shit. What the hell? I'm so bad at this. What is going on? Okay, there we go. And then. See, and I probably should have just looked at some other graph. I should probably should have just looked at some other graphs, But like in a lot of other countries, right, a moderate is like if you were to talk about like a someone on the right, in other, and the scale of this is definitely not correct, but the moderates for us is way further to the right. See, the way I'm presenting this is so weird, but like actually, I think what would have been better to do here, I don't know. See, I don't know, but like say someone that says they're more conservative, right, on another country, they're actually probably more of like a moderate or something here in America's standards, right? And it's just that the Republican Party is currently just, they're going to follow Trump. They're going to follow Elon Musk. Maybe there's one or two people that, won't vote. There was one Republican that didn't vote for the Republican, spending bill or whatever. But for the most part, they either fully support it or are just terrified of being primaried by, Elon Musk funding challengers. Right. And so it's just the party's the party, right? They're going to do whatever Trump and Elon want. Right. And then the Democratic Party is so goddamn far ranged, right? From people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, who we're going to talk about Bernie Sanders in a second being independent. But so far left, right? And then you have moderates like the Democrats that are just voting for the Trump spending bill. Right. And stuff like that. Right. And so it's important when we're looking at all of this stuff. It's, in my opinion, really, really important to not get so just upset at the Democratic Party as a whole. Like, it's important to get upset at the Democratic Party. But I would say to people that, have been voting third party or are being swayed to either not vote or vote third party, in my opinion, I think it's way more important to like try to just boost up the progressive side of the Democratic Party. Right now, if we're talking about local elections, that's different. And this is actually something I wanted to talk about here. that recently, I think this actually this was literally written today, that Bernie Sanders is telling the left to not run as a Democrat, to run as an independent, right? And obviously the backstory of Bernie Sanders is he is an independent, but like when he tried to run for president in I believe 2016 and 2020. He ran as a Democrat, right? Because he knows that that's just the way more realistic, way to get this system to work, right? And so it is interesting, right? I would say, right, like, in local elections, right? And that's what I always say, right? I really think that if third parties are actually trying to do anything, right, or, independents, that they should be trying to take up these local positions and then trying to, maybe if you run for president, run as a Democrat, or, obviously, he works with the Democratic caucus to doing stuff. But Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont has a message for his fellow progressives. Why don't you shed the Democratic label and run as an independent the way he does? He came in an interview with the New York Times after doing his, he's going through all these fucking Western states with AOC, going to, of New York, and stuff like that. One of the aspects of this tour is to try to rally people to get engaged in the political process and run as independents outside of the Democratic Party. Mr. Sanders said in the interview on Wednesday, there's a lot of great leadership all over this country at grassroots level. We've got to bring that forward. And if we do that, we can defeat Trumpism and we can transform the political situation in America. The suggestion that would-be leaders of the left should abandon the Democratic Party picks at a political scab, right? That he's been codependent relationship with the Democrats. He's never accepted the Democratic label, but he is a member of the Senate Democratic Caucus and has run under the party brand when it was politically expedient, including his 2 bids for presidential nomination. He waged a hard, obviously he didn't win. In 2011, Mr. Sanders said during a radio interview, it'd be a good idea if President Obama faced some primary opposition for his 2012 re-election. The Vermont senator at the time said he could not do it because he was not a Democrat, but that did not stop him, in 2016 and 2020, trying to run as a Democrat. And so this was just pretty much, talking about this and stuff like that, right? And I think that the thing I want to talk about here is because, obviously, I'm sure if we, talked more about, and we looked more into this and stuff like that, I'm sure if Bernie was going to run again, which I don't think he's going to run again for president, I don't think, we had the chance. I think we're going to have to hope to get more of the, progressive sides of this party, through, other candidates, maybe like AOC in the future. I would fucking love that. And, Tim Walz and stuff like that. So I overall agree with the sentiment of, hey, we have this grassroots movement, just maybe, obviously a lot of people are not happy with Democrats right now in the Democratic Party for not fighting hard enough, against the dismantling of our government that is happening right now. And so, in my mind, and I don't know if this is just me taking what he's saying and putting it from my perspective, but like, that sounds like, hey, you don't need to run as a Democrat, on these local things, maybe be more open to voting independent in local elections. Now I will say, right, that a big part of that is, say you have a Democrat and then you have like an independent and you have a Republican. I feel like as a voter and as someone maybe that would, no, I'm not, but as other people that would be running for office or whatever, I think it's probably important to look at how realistic certain things are, right? Bernie Sanders, right, ran as a Democrat for the presidential because he knew that there was no way in fucking hell, right, that he would win as an independent in a presidential election. So even though he's saying, hey, don't run as Democrats, right, in my mind, I'm taking that as on these statewide elections, as these local elections, you don't have to vote Democrat, if you want to say you're an independent, be an independent, right? And then, work with the Democrats, when it's something that you believe in and stuff. Bernie Sanders has voted against the Democratic Party a lot as well when it's things he doesn't agree with, and so I wanted to talk about that one because, it does go against a little bit of what I've talked about a lot on my political stances and views of how it just doesn't really feel like the time right now to be voting for third party and stuff like that. Because it just feels like we have such an existential crisis to our, our government and the institutions, right? Checks and balances. I mean, fucking some of these court cases going to the Supreme Court. What happens if the Supreme Court, one says things that Trump is doing and ignoring all the other judges is okay? That's awful. And that's going to be insane to see the consequences of that. And if they say he's not allowed to do it, well, I mean, what's stopping him from just ignoring it like he is the other judges, right? It's like, what happens when the checks and balances don't work, right? And so I think that's why people are so mad at the Democratic Party for not fighting hard enough, right? And so I wanted to show this because it does almost go a little bit against what I'm talking about. I would say that's why, I would argue that, maybe just take from Bernie's book, right? Like if you think that it, would help you and you don't fully align with the Democratic Party, right? Because you're too progressive, right? Maybe, vote, be an independent and try to, in these local elections, try to get more of these very progressive independents in office and stuff like that. But I would say almost like try not to look too much at the label, right? Because I think some people are still so against Democrats, maybe for how they fucked over Bernie or, for being complicit in a genocide or, all of these, valid reasons. And it's like, you're looking at the Democratic Party and you're blaming everyone in the Democratic Party for these things. When in reality, as an example, as we looked, there were only 10 Democrats, right, that in the Senate that helped that funding bill happen, right? What about all the other ones? What about all the other progressives? What about people like AOC, people like Bernie Sanders, and stuff like that. So instead of just like hating the Democratic Party so much and being so like, okay, I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to vote the Democratic Party. I'm going to protest vote. I'm going to, whatever. It's like, maybe just be hyper vigilant and find which Democratic candidates, or independents that are running as a Democrat or in local elections, maybe independent candidates, find those that actually have, very progressive values, have the same progressive values that you have, who are proving that they're going to stand up. They're going to fight against this stuff, and don't be just so not disillusioned. That's not the right word, but don't be so like upset at the Democratic Party. One, that you promote, in my opinion, the false equivalency that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are the same evil, because I just truly don't believe that. And I think there is parts of the Democratic Party, right? Like the establishment Democrats, all of the people in the Democratic Party that were saying the reason Kamala Harris and Tim Walz lost was because Tim Walz was too progressive. And it's like, no, you weren't progressive enough. You were working with Republicans to try to do this bipartisan shit. And that's not how this works right now. That's not how politics works right now, right? You need to stand up for what you believe in. You need to, fight when you're seeing all these injustices. It's like, okay, if the Democratic Party is going to keep trying to fundraise about all this stuff is an existential crisis, right, to democracy, then fucking act like it. Act like Bernie Sanders, act like AOC, going on fucking, tours being like, this is insane. We can't allow this to happen. We need to get more people to vote, pay attention to those types of people and put negative attention on the Democrats that are being complicit, right? Because, the Democratic Party is in for a rude awakening. And honestly, I would love to say that I think it's going to get better. But in reality, I just totally could see a reality in which the Democratic Party shoots themselves in the foot over and over and over again. But I still don't think the answer to that is to just disengage from the political system or to just constantly be voting third party, even if it is like for the presidential elections, right? And stuff like that. And I think it's just, it's the most likely good scenario. Like, in my opinion, the best way to get this shit to work, to fix some of these systems, is to just get more super progressives, that align with your views, in office, and I know I missed some of this chat here. Tiny groups like Bernie and others are the equivalent of the leftist parties that get little to none support. Well, and that's the thing, it's like the Bernie Sanders and stuff like that, obviously he has been fighting a lot with the Democratic Party, sometimes. Democratic Party and the establishment Democrats, fucked him over in his presidential bid, and stuff like that, And so, I don't know a perfect way to end this video, I just, and I know that we ended up getting sidetracked, from some other debates and some other aspects of this, which is part of the the reason I do these streams. I want to have my views challenged. I want to have, you know, debates with people, you know, that are good intellectual, factual debates, like Real Callum is saying, you know, and not just, you know, people telling me to go fuck Kamala Harris and throwing out slurs and stuff like that, you know, and I know it probably makes these YouTube videos not as palatable, but I don't know. Ultimately, it's just a creative outlet for me. You know, I keep hearing everybody on the left being like, man, we need more content creators on the left to be speaking out about these things and talking about these things, because, you know, it's the internet, especially the gaming space, is just totally full of just, you know, right-wing, content creators and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm trying to put my hat in the ring, right? But ultimately, right, you know, I know these videos and these streams are, you know, for those of you guys watching after the fact on the HoldenOnHere channel, right? I know they're not palatable. And this is just the start, right? I in the future, you know, want to maybe try to, you know, come up with other ways, you know, maybe make edited versions of these videos and stuff like that. But ultimately, right, all of that said, it's just, like I said, this is just a creative outlet for me. I'm just putting my hat in the ring. I'm making a video like this in a stream, you know, twice a month, not really much. You know, I'm making sure there's lots of other fun stuff on this channel as well. So it's not just politics, especially with the subathon that we're going to be doing April 1st. There'll be a lot of fun stuff that gets uploaded to this channel. And I just want to, you know, try to be looking at the facts, trying to be, you know, actually, you know, figuring some of this stuff out. And, you know, if nobody watches it, it's like, it's fine, right? For those of you guys that know it, I know there's a small group of people that, you know, on the HoldenOnHere channel, do enjoy this content. And I'm just, you know, part of it's, you know, me just letting you know, I'm holding on here with y'all, and stuff like that. You know, just if I end up convincing a couple people to vote that didn't vote otherwise, if I convince a couple people to change their opinion or change their vote, or, you know, give people the tools and the facts and the information to, you know, have further debates with people in your life, then that's a plus. But ultimately, it's just a creative outlet for me. So for those of you guys that enjoy this type of content, I appreciate it. Like always, I will go ahead and post it in the chats right now. It will be in the description down below for those of you guys that, you know, want the Google Doc of a lot of the videos or the articles that we showcased in the video here, and stuff like that. You know, so, you know, if you're trying to bring any of this up with someone, you know, like Bernie is good, but honestly, the American democracy is so terribly structured that it seems to not matter much. Like, y'all need two-turn votings and stuff like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. The two-party system is fucked. The way we vote is fucked, right? You know, I am a huge advocate for things like ranked choice voting. You know, here, let me see. Democrats who have passed ranked choice voting. And this is one more thing I want to talk about here. Because overall, you know, Democrats, you know, are the ones that are pushing for ranked choice voting, right? And in some instances, ranked choice voting has, you know, already is either there's some. I think these things here are like local option for municipalities to opt into ranked choice voting. In some places, local elections have ranked choice voting. Some statewide, you know, in some places. And so ranked choice voting and other things like that are getting bigger, right? And more people are advocating for it, right? Obviously, the Democratic Party is the one advocating for that a lot more than Republicans. Overall, Republicans want less and less people to vote, because the less people that vote, the more likely, you know, a Republican is to win. You know, that's why there's been a lot of voter suppression laws. And I know there's arguments on the other side where the Republicans are like, well, that's why they want all the immigrants, because they all vote Democrat. And it's like, okay, but like, you got to look into, like, I don't know, like the actual stuff, you know, like you got to look into, you know, what are, like, is that the only reason that you don't want these illegal immigrants, is because it's going to make like Republicans less likely to win? Or is it like, you know, because you're like, you know, it's like, why are you actually against these things, you know? And stuff like that. One last funny political thing is that France has floated the idea of America returning Lady Liberty. Yeah, I did see that. Also, with regards to our voting system, we are the first modern democracy. That doesn't mean we're the best. An accounting system that's not optimized for horses. We're in purely theoretical situation, assuming everyone votes Democrat or Republican, a 22% minority can win the presidency. Yeah. And so obviously, yeah, our political system is fucked. And I think there's a lot of people that look to third parties as the solution to that. And I guess I just don't think that at a high scale, once again, local elections, as long as, you're not potentially helping, siphon votes away from Democratic voters or Democratic candidates. I think that that's fine, grassroots, movements and local elections and stuff like that. But I overall think the more realistic way to get change is to, whether it's Democrat or Republican. I mean, it's obvious that Democrats are the ones, more likely to promote certain things like ranked choice voting. But I don't even just so I won't even just say that, and I won't use the terms Democrat and Republican. Just look into your candidates, right? Or any of the candidates that you're going to vote for, talking about how they want some, election changes. They want ranked choice voting. Look into candidates that are aligning with those views, because 99% of the time, it's going to be either someone in the Democratic Party, or it's going to be maybe a third party. And then I think you have to be realistic with, is this person going to win, right? I know a big part of the third party is you increase the chances of more and more people voting third party and stuff like that. But it's or we could just have more and more people voting Democrat, and then we wouldn't have Trump and all of this stuff, but, and so that's that, I suppose. Local third party is good. Presidential candidate wise, it's impossible, to be honest. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to bring up that Bernie Sanders thing. Cause him saying he wants more people to run as independents, right? But even he, on the big election, ran as a Democrat, because it's not going to happen, otherwise, and stuff like that. So, I know we skewed a little bit more off of, the Democratic Party, and I do want to, because it is exhausting, right? Every political video just being here's all the 70 things Trump did. Here's all the 80 things Elon Musk did. Here's how our government's on fire, right? And, as things keep getting crazier and crazier, I'm sure some of these political videos will be about that, but I also want to make sure that we're talking about other topics. I also maybe want to make some shorter political videos that are more edited, more deep dives into, things like Bernie Sanders, AOC. I'd like to do a deep dive into all the things they, care about, and the things that they, they stand for. I want to make some videos on, maybe socialism. I want to make some videos on environmental stuff, right? And obviously all this political stuff, this is just a small little background creative outlet on a second channel that is a creative outlet, and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to put in the effort, but, and the time, but it's something that, I do want to, keep improving and doing, especially as we do more of this. And so, I don't want to talk too much about other stuff. I know we got sidetracked and stuff, but ultimately, just wanted to talk about the Democratic Party for a change, because, I don't want people to think I am just one of those people that I make fun of, and I'm just constantly, playing politics like it's a sports team. Because even though I am, trying to, maybe convince some people if we get some actually real elections here in 2026 and 2028, to try to help stop this, try to convince those of your friends that are non-voters or maybe third-party voters in the big election to, maybe consider trying to put a stop to this. And maybe when we go back to some normalcy, maybe we can then talk about some of these other third party, stuff. But, it's crazy. Why can't we take care of people? Unemployment, people get more money from the government. I bet if the government managed money better, we could. Unemployment people get more money from the government. Are you saying, why can't we unemployment people? Oh, we'll see. And the only thing I'll say is autistic spectrum, trying to get a job out there is tough. Don't the rich freeload off the government. Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing I will say is just like I was saying earlier, it's not a Republican versus a Democrat thing, right? It's a poor versus the ultra wealthy, right? And so as say someone who's maybe, if you're lower class, if you're middle class, the Republican Party, and I'm going to change this. The oligarchs, they're very rich, right? They don't want you to realize that they're the problem, right? They want you to think that the problem is poor people taking advantage of government systems, right? What about rich people doing that exact thing, right? We're dismantling the government to try to give rich people more tax breaks, right? That's what is happening right now. And so, they want you to think that trans people are the issue. Illegal immigrants are the issue, right? People on unemployment are the issue. Anyone that isn't them, they want you to think is the issue, you know? Europe world stream. Yeah, I don't know too much about world politics. That would be interesting though. That would be fun, you know? The third party issue with America is that the third parties are more likely to take from the more fractured side of the political spectrum. And right now it's the Democratic Party that's more fractured. Yeah. They're also practically run the government so they get to close their eyes at the mirrors we hold up to their faces. Oh, you're talking about like, yeah. And, you know, so... Yeah, so I know we talked about a lot. I know that this stream went a little bit off the rails, but I mean, that's why we do them as streams, right? Because I could just fucking read these articles and stuff offline. And I do want to do more structured videos like that in the future. And so, you know, I do want to look more into, you know, Democratic Party stuff. I want to look more into, you know, deep dives into stuff like that. I have some friends who said they might actually try to, you know, help me with some of that. So definitely things in the future, you know, and, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, just wanted to one, show you guys that I can shit on the Democratic Party, and it's okay to do that sometimes. But also just wanted to make it very clear where my stances are, that, you know, it's a false equivalency to be saying these are the same evils, you know, and, you know, the Democratic Party is so fragmented, right? There is a huge divide in the Democratic Party. And so, you know, if you're someone that doesn't align with the Republican Party, right, there is somewhere within the Democratic Party, right, that you will have candidates that believe you. If you're someone who isn't as progressive as me, right, there's going to be more moderate Democrats, you know, and you know, I know right now we're shitting on more moderate Democrats, but you know, it's just like, I don't think going to the third party is the play, you know, and even when we do look into these things and there is fraud in some of these cases and things haven't been perfect, you know, it's like, I would still rather take that than just what is happening right now. And I don't even want to keep talking about everything going on right now, because it's literally what the last like 9 hours of political content has been on the channel, you know? But yeah, the Democratic Party needs to do more. And I'm not saying that in the fact that, you know, every single Democrat is not doing enough. You know, you have Democrats like AOC and Bernie who are going on these tours. They're trying to educate, they're trying to inform people, you know? And you know, some of these people that are doing podcasts like Gavin Newsom, even though I think he's taking the complete wrong approach, right? But you know, there needs to be something. The Democratic Party and the people in the Democratic Party who are not fighting hard enough need to fight harder. They do a lot, right? And I think like part of it, I don't know if we talked about it, Chuck Schumer was like, yeah, well, you know, the Republican Party, you know, they'll debate with us and they'll actually have conversations with us when the Trump's approval rating is low enough, right? And it's not low enough yet. So that's why, you know, we didn't put our foot down here. And it's like, no, like we're past that point, right? Like we're 100% past that point. You need to try to fight it. The American people want to see you try to fight it. And then going forward, when you put up candidates, right, the Democratic Party needs to have a rude awakening that playing the both sides, playing this moderate thing isn't going to work, right? Because you either have people that are so far on the right, like the people came in the stream earlier, that are just throwing slurs everywhere. They're just filled with hate in their heart, you know, and there's no way that you're going to convince them to vote. Even people that are, you know, Republicans that won't vote for Trump, right? They're still not voting for the opposition. They're just voting for no one, or they're voting for a third party, right? Or some of them are, right? And so it's like, no, you need to just, the Democratic Party needs to rally behind these progressives. You need to have some progressive values and wins, right, for the American people, you know, to be incentivized to vote rather than just saying, well, we're better than the other side, you know, yeah. So, but yeah, so you know, I know it was a lot, and I know we got, you know, sidetracked, and I know I said I wanted this video to be like under an hour, and now we're over 2 hours here. But you know, it was a good creative outlet. I hope for those of you guys still, you know, if you're watching after the fact on YouTube, thank you so much. And you know, let me know if there's any topics in particular you'd like me to talk about. Description to all the links will be in the description down below. Obviously, if you're tired with politics, there is tons of just fun content on this channel, you know, that isn't, you know, politics, you know, but also there's going to be the playlist if you do want to see all the other politics. You know, I kept mentioning the other videos that we were talking about. So if you want to, you know, hear us talk about, you know, at the time, you know, the Doge cuts, you know, how Trump's acting with Russia and our allies, you know, the similarities between Project 2025 and what's already happened, you know, all those videos are there. So check those out. Otherwise, thanks for listening. I hope this was constructive in some way. You know, if you're watching after the fact on YouTube, you know, make sure you guys subscribe and ring that bell to try to get us caught up to, I think, the Neon Apes channel right now. We're getting close to already passing the Neon Apes channel. And then obviously at that point, we'll try to catch up to the Time to Grind channel. But, you know, this channel is just a creative outlet for me. You know, whether people watch or not, I'm okay with that because I'm just here for it, you know? Yeah, so there'll be videos, there'll be playlists, all that good stuff. You know, I'm holding on, you know, just keep holding on. And I'll talk to you guys later.